Hey guys, it's the MMA Exchange. UFC 318 is on its way. Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway 3 is headlining the card. This one has drama, history, and a lot of evolution from both fighters. Poirier is up 2-0, but a lot has changed since their last fight in 2019. Let's break this one down.
The MMA Exchange.
Back in the Conor trilogy, Poirier looked slick. Really good head movement, clean counters, great composure. But since then, I think the focus on grappling because of guys like Oliveira and Makhachev dominating the division has made him focus more on grappling and in turn has made him more flat-footed. Against Oliveira, he looked great very early, but the clinch work and the knees to the body started gassing him out. The same thing with Islam. He had moments where he hurt Makhachev, but then the grappling wore him down and then he got submitted once again. Dustin's still dangerous, but the fluidity in his striking just isn't the same as it was in those Conor fights and earlier. Another big factor is that Dustin Poirier has had a hip replacement. That's why we barely see him throw kicks, especially calf kicks. He's become more of a pressure boxer with some BJJ and clinch work when needed, but he does not have a lot of variety. If anything, I think Dustin might be the one to shoot in this fight, especially if Max starts overwhelming him. I don't see Max shooting at all, so that guillotine threat from Dustin will not play a part in this fight. Now let's talk about Max, specifically his lightweight rebirth. In 2019, that fight against Dustin Poirier, he came in on short notice and didn't bulk up properly and got bullied by the bigger man. Fast forward to UFC 300, and Max shows up as a true lightweight. He knocks out Justin Gaethje with 1 second left in the 5th round, and that was huge. He looked filled, he looked much more powerful, and still had that relentless Holloway pace. Against Justin Gaethje, what we noticed is that he mixed it up beautifully. Leg kicks, body shots, leg kicks, body shots, high kicks, and showed way better timing and power than we've ever seen him have. Now, key matchup details. Dustin's biggest weapon is in his boxing when he pressures guys to the cage. He'll rip to the body, then come upstairs, but Max thrives in the chaos. He sees punches mid-combo and then will fire back. Both guys have shown issues with calf kicks. We've seen Max take damage against Volk, Justin Gaethje, and Ilya, but Max has started timing those and making guys pay for them. So if Dustin throws one and Max steps in, that could be a turning point. Max even dropped Volk with a head kick once, and Dustin's head kick defense, as we've seen in his second Justin Gaethje fight, isn't the best. He ended up getting knocked out. Now, to look at my prediction, I think this fight stays standing, and Max's volume, accuracy, and variety are gonna shine. Poirier might land early, but I think over 5 rounds I see Max pulling away. He's more fluid, he's evolved. I just don't think Dustin has the same spark that he used to back in those Conor fights and earlier. I'm gonna go with Max by round 5 TKO or decision if Poirier, or a clear decision if Poirier survives. They've got too much respect for each other, I believe, to make it a fast-paced fight early on and try and go for the finish. I think the thing is with Dustin Poirier, he's had a very similar style throughout his career. Now, that's not to say that, of course, we know that Max Holloway is going to box and he's going to kickbox, but we did see that when he truly bulked up to lightweight in his fight against Justin Gaethje, we just saw a more evolved Max Holloway. The issues that people were saying about Max moving up to fight Justin Gaethje was that he couldn't take the power. It was just too much of a difference, but we saw how well he did in there. His speed was the factor. As we've seen before, the lighter weight classes, when they move up, are normally the ones that are going to be pulling off the W's, because you are dealing with guys that are much more accurate, much more quicker, and just have more speed to work with. So once you go up to a heavier weight class, you know, I'm not gonna say it's like slow motion, but it does seem like that just a little bit. So Dustin Poirier, we know he's gonna box. He's not gonna grapple or go for the takedown, I believe, and that will make Max Holloway's game plan much more easier. I actually believe that Max Holloway should throw at least, or shoot at least one takedown. Don't commit to it fully, but get Dustin thinking, and that way your boxing and kickboxing up to the lower parts and upper parts of the body will be easily mixed in. And I think who's going to do that better? Max Holloway. So guys, once again, Max Holloway by round 5 TKO, or a very clear decision. I think winning 3 rounds. I think winning 4 rounds to 1. Alright guys, and for the co-main event, we have Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. It's a banger on paper, but I'm gonna go with Roman Kopylov because, well, here's why. Roman Kopylov has been on a 2-fight win streak since his loss to Anthony Hernandez, where we did see his grappling get exposed and also his cardio. After that, he bounced back with a fight against Cesar Almeida, who at the time was undefeated at 7-0 and was a world-class kickboxer. Roman handled that fight well, and even though he started to fade in the 3rd round, he clearly won the first 2 rounds and ended up landing a decision. After that, he goes then to knock out Chris Curtis or TKO Chris Curtis in the last second of the 3rd round. Chris Curtis is tough, durable, and look, the late stoppage may be a little bit controversial, but Roman was winning those rounds and regardless would have won a decision. He stayed composed, landed cleaner shots, and had Chris Curtis reacting to the kicks to the body and had just the better precision over those 3 rounds. His striking is really good. It's very sharp, calculated, dangerous, especially with that left kick to the body and left kick to the head. The way that he just finishes these guys, man, clean. And it's not just he lands them like at the right spot, it's the power that he's putting into all these kicks. It's like almost surgical. Now, I also need to talk about the elephant in the room when we talk about this fight. Paulo Costa's decline. And let's be honest, he hasn't looked like the eraser in a while. Since losing to Adesanya in 2020, he lost a fight to Vettori where he missed weight twice. They changed it and it ended up being at 205 pounds, lightweight. He then won a really sloppy fight against Luke Rockhold, that was his retirement fight. And that was Costa's only win since 2019. And then he lost back-to-back decisions against Robert Whittaker, who is the 3rd best middleweight within the division, and then Sean Strickland, who was a former champion. But the biggest issue with Costa that I have is that he just doesn't throw. Like there's no urgency to pull the trigger anymore, and even when he has guys hurt, he just doesn't capitalize and go for the finish. The old Costa would have done something. He would have just like barraged his opponents. As soon as he saw a weakness, he would have done something about it. So physically, yes, he looks like a beast, but stylistically, like it's like he has no killer instinct anymore. And he's pulled out of multiple fights against Hamza, Ikram Aliskerov, Rob Whittaker before. So it's always something with this guy. Now, I want to go back to Roman Kopylov for a second, because in that Chris Curtis fight, Curtis is very durable and he walks forward the whole fight. That's his style, very similar to Sean Strickland. And Roman he did keep his composure. He was very calm under that pressure and he worked to the body and stayed disciplined. Now, Paulo Costa also does walk forward. He doesn't pull the trigger as much. I mean, Curtis doesn't really pull the trigger that much at all, but I think those two, like that fight was a good warm-up fight for Paulo Costa. So I think that it'll look very similar. It'll be a lot of head kicks, a lot of body shots, jabbing at range, and not being afraid to get into it if he has to, into the pocket. So in terms of matchup dynamics, stylistically, it's a great matchup for Kopylov. Costa's not going to wrestle, and that's the only area that Kopylov has holes in his game, but I think he's working on that. So this is going to be a stand-up fight. Kopylov is way more varied in striking, kicks, movement, body shots. He's even fight IQ in terms of shot selection is even better. Costa throws in bursts, and if you weather the storm early, he starts to slow down, and Roman's body work is going to be huge, because as Costa starts gassing, Kopylov is going to start to throw more body shots, making him gas even more, and potentially we might even see a stoppage in this fight. My prediction, unless Costa doesn't come out like, I don't know, 2019 Costa, then Roman Kopylov, and I think he's going to get this done by TKO. I just trust his activity, his technique, and I think, you know what, round 3 TKO is what we're going to see from Roman Kopylov. And before the co-main event, guys, we have Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. Now, I don't know, like Kopylov and Costa, now you have Kevin Holland and D-Rod, they're low-ranked fighters within their respective divisions. I think a main event should be all ranked fighters, you know, higher ranked fighters. Let me know what you think in the comments below, but let's get into this one, starting with Daniel Rodriguez. D-Rod's tough, he's gritty, but he's not technical. He's really obvious with his movements and will move in a straight line when getting pressured. Predictable footwork, and he doesn't really create that many angles. What that opens him up to is a lot of 1-2s down the pipe and calf kicks, because he doesn't throw kicks that much. He more relies on his boxing, making him put on more weight on his lead leg. And also he doesn't have that much variety within his boxing. He beat a washed up Ponzinibbio, and he then got a split decision over Alex Morono. And let's not forget, he robbed Li Jingliang. Everyone knew that Li Jingliang won that fight, but the judges ended up giving the decision to Rodriguez. When he steps into higher end competition like Ian Gary put him out cold. He's also lost to Kevin Gastelum and Neil Magny, and both of those guys are fucking washed. He's hittable, flat-footed, and limited once someone tries to take him down. Makes him very, very uncomfortable. With Kevin Holland, he's way better than when D-Rod. When he takes things seriously though. Known as Big Mouth, no Diddy. I mean, well, he was innocent, but anyway. Talking mid-fight, he's admitted to skipping wrestling practice, and that showed in his middleweight run, where he got absolutely mauled by people not even known for their wrestling. He's bounced back between welterweight and middleweight with no clear focus, but when he's dialed in, he is dangerous. He's long, he's rangy, he's creative, he has really good jiu-jitsu. His dash chokes are so good, and he submitted Michael Chiesa, who isn't really that good, and also Vicente Luque, who is a really good jiu-jitsu player. Kevin Holland has also finished Ponzinibbio. He also dominated Gunnar Nelson, and I rate that win much more highly than any win that D-Rod has had. Why? Because Gunnar Nelson takes a lot of time in between his fights to focus and really hone in on his craft, and Kevin Holland just absolutely schooled him. But the issue with Holland is his mentality. He sometimes doesn't care, and you can see that in how he fights. And you know, when he's on autopilot, it's like he gives fights away. Look, with the breakdown, if it stays standing, and it likely will, to be honest, Holland has a much clearer edge. Even on the ground, he has a much better chance. He's longer, faster, he's more unpredictable. He can throw from range, mixing kicks, body kicks, calf kicks. Rodriguez won't shoot, and even if he does, I think Holland will just see it coming. Holland's just better on the ground, so even if it does get on the ground, he can latch up a submission, add in the calf kicks and knees, and man, like, Kevin's winning this 100%. I also want to touch base on Kevin's mentality. I know I said that his mentality was his weakness. He's like the kind of guy that he even said he was striking with Wonderboy. I mean, well, this is his fight with Wonderboy. He was striking the whole time, did not try mixing the grappling whatsoever, and then he loses and then goes, well guys, that's why you don't strike with Wonderboy. He did shit like that because if he actually tried and worked towards a solid game plan, tailored to his opponent's weakness, and he still ended up losing, he wouldn't be able to hide behind that mask. My pick is Kevin Holland by submission. Rodriguez is durable, but limited, and Holland just has way more tools. It all comes down to his mindset, and I think his mindset moving forward will be that of a positive one. Let me know your pick in the comments below. Alright guys, now, before that fight we have Dan Ige, who's ranked number 11 in the featherweight division, versus Patricio Pitbull. why are you giving Dan Ige to Patricio Pitbull, man? Like, Pitbull looked absolutely dog shit in his last fight against Yair Rodriguez. Yair Rodriguez is known for not being as durable, for being frail, easy to take down, and Patricio just could not get into range. The kicks were a problem for him, the jabs were a problem for him. Anything that Yair did got a reaction out of Patricio Pitbull. Dan Ige is the gatekeeper of the featherweight division. If you beat Dan Ige, you are most likely going to be within the top echelon of the featherweight division. Dan Ige is ranked number 11, and Patricio Pitbull has said that he's going to be the first person to try to finish Dan Ige. I don't see that shit happening, bro. Like, Patricio Pitbull was wearing a suit at the pre-fight press conference, acting like he's a fucking debutant into the UFC. Now, I just think that Dan Ige is much more experienced against high-level competition. The pressure will be an issue for Patricio Pitbull. I mean, if Yair Rodriguez can pressure you and land some clean shots, Dan Ige most likely would do that as well. The only difference is that Yair Rodriguez uses a lot of his kicks, whereas Dan Ige is more boxing-orientated. But what I still think will happen is that he'll be able to pressure him to the cage and start landing clean shots. Patricio Pitbull gets hit very easily. He is even his fights against Michael Chandler weren't the best. His technique isn't that good, and I don't know what the fuck Davidson Figueiredo is training, or what his mindset is training with the Pitbull brothers, because a guy like Patricio is not someone that you should have in your camp. I clearly have this Dan Ige by decision. I definitely think that if I'm Patricio Pitbull, I am trying to get the shittest level of competition in the UFC, build my name up a little bit, and then try and go for a higher level guy like Dan Ige. But he has this fight against Dan Ige. I think he's going to lose quite easily because he's very, very predictable. Patricio Pitbull just slow. He has the same game plan all the time. He tries to land that overhand. He'll try and jab, but that's about it. He doesn't mix it up at all. At least Dan Ige mixes it up, and I just think he's the more well-rounded fighter. I have Dan Ige by decision. Then opening up the main event, guys, we have Michael Johnson versus Daniel Zellhuber. You've seen all the memes and shit about Michael Johnson, the kind of guy to beat Dustin Poirier and Tony Ferguson, but then lose to a guy like Bobby Green. We have Daniel Zellhuber, who is the prospect from Mexico. Daniel Zellhuber's last fight was against Esteban Ribovics. It was a split decision, and that was at UFC Noche. That was such a banger fight. Really good fight, but then round 3 was the deciding round, and Ribovics just started landing bombs. The thing is, when you fight a tall, rangy guy, you cannot afford to be in kickboxing range where you're on the outside. You have to be in the pocket, and that's what Ribovics did very, very well. Before that fight, though, Zellhuber won against Francisco Prado, who I believe is also on this card, and he just used his range so good, even on the ground. Really good submission. And we see these submissions in fights like, against Christos Giagos, which was an anaconda choke in round 2. Now, I think a guy like Zellhuber needed that loss to happen at UFC Noche, because when you have fighters that are always winning, they're young, they're hungry, they might not understand still that they have holes in their game that they need to work on. So a loss like this against Esteban Ribovics back in 2014 September would be a massive learning curve. We have then Michael Johnson, who is now on a 2-fight win streak, and that was against Otman Azaita, who was pretty shit, and also Darius Flowers. And before that Darius Flowers fight, Michael Johnson lost against Diego Ferreira, who I rate quite highly, via round 2 knockout. This is how I see it with Michael Johnson. You're losing to guys like Jamie Malaki and Diego Ferreira, who are, Jamie Malaki's shit, let's be honest. Diego Ferreira is pretty good, but you're losing to a guy like Jamie Malaki, and now you're fighting a guy like, you won against Mark Giacchese, then you lost against Diego Ferreira, and then you went on that 2-fight win streak that I mentioned earlier. But now you're going against Daniel Zellhuber, whose boxing is so crisp, his jiu-jitsu is so good. He's able to mix it up quite well. You know what I believe? I actually believe that the jab will be the most important punch for Zellhuber just because of his range. And I just think this is fucking brutal. I actually think that this will be a doctor's stoppage, because the damage done to the eyes of, or to one of the eyes of Michael Johnson, because Zellhuber's fast with that jab. Bop, 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 bop. Distance. Then he'll go again. Bop, bop. He doesn't stop, and he paces himself very well. The reason why he lost the Ribovic fight is because Ribovic brought a brawl to him. He came inside the pocket, started throwing uppercuts, then to the body, then to the head. He was mixing it up so well. Is Michael Johnson going to do that? No, man. He's a much older fighter. Let's see here real quick. 39 years old. For the lightweight division, that is massive. But knowing Michael Johnson, he'd probably be the one, you know, it's like you lose to a guy against Jamie Malaki, but then win against a guy like Daniel Zellhuber. But I don't think that's going to happen. I have Daniel Zellhuber winning via TKO. Just because he's more well-rounded, he uses his distance better, and I just think at this stage of the career, Michael Johnson is not good. Zellhuber for the win. And guys, that's my breakdown for UFC 318, the main event. In the description, I'll put my picks for the prelim and early prelims. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please leave a like, comment, and share. And please remember to put the bell notification on so you do get a notification each time that I post a video. Thank you guys once again for watching.